Good afternoon, everyone. It's Willers, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're talking about our two newest tropical storms, and Tropical Storm Nana and Tropical Storm Omar, and one of them possibly turning into a hurricane hitting the Yucatan Peninsula. And our three next storms that could be named are going to be Paulette, Renee, and Sally. Before I do get started with the video, I do ask that you do subscribe if you enjoy the weather content that I do provide. Hit that notification bell icon to never miss one of my videos. Make sure to hit the like button so you can get this video up to 5 likes, and share it with your family and friends. Here is the NHC's map of disturbances. You can see Tropical Storm Omar up here off the Atlantic coast, and then Tropical Storm Nana down here in the Caribbean just to the south of Jamaica. And then we have a new couple of waves coming off of Africa that have under a 40% chance to form in the next 2 days. But as you can see here on the 5-day outlook, we do have a wave right here with a 40 to 60% chance of forming right here. So we'll be keeping our eyes on that. And then this wave right here being at around a 40% chance of forming, kind of staying put. But today we're going to get started with Tropical Storm Omar, which isn't going to be affecting much of anything other than maybe the tired waves. But it's going to be a tropical storm up until around 2 p.m. on Wednesday, and then fall up to a tropical storm in the early morning hours of Thursday, and completely miss land. It's just going to be an ocean storm, but the tropical wind force speed probabilities, you can see a little chunk right here of around 40 to 50% chance, and then most of it being under 30% chance of it forming, with a big chunk of 5 to 10% right there. When can you see the arrival times of these winds? Well, Bermuda, you may not be getting anything at all, but if you possibly are, you could be receiving some higher wind speeds around Wednesday, around 2 a.m. if the winds do go out that far, but it's not going to be hitting much of anything. So Bermuda, I think you will be fine. And then here on the model intensity guidance, most of these models have it being a tropical storm for a little bit, but most of them have it kind of falling off rapidly, going back down into a tropical depression. Here are the map guidances. You can see most of the models are very consistent with it kind of going up, then down, and going right back up, and then falling apart kind of in the Arctic a little bit. We'll have to see what happens here. Obviously, it's not going to be hitting much of anything, so it's not a real main threat on our list, unlike Tropical Storm Nana. You can see here on the GEFS track guidance, you can see have it being around 1,011 millibars at its peak and around 48 hours. But its current course has it kind of falling apart here at the 72-hour mark, as most models have it being very consistent around that point. Here you can see some satellite images. You can see hardly any convection at all. Convection is thunderstorms that are within these storms. You can see a little chunk there on -80, but other than that, this storm is not very well organized. Hardly any convection, so this won't be really a main threat at all. And here on the large wave, there's not much going on here as well. You can kind of see some areas kind of starting to form behind it, but other than that, there's nothing really going on with this storm. Here's my forecast. I do have it reaching a tropical status in about 24 hours with around 38 miles per hour winds and pressure at 1,009 millibars. In about 12 hours, have it reaching 14 mile per hour winds with around 1,007 millibars, and then 36 hours have it being 35 mile per hour winds and then pressure up to 1,011. So what are the current stats? Tropical Depression 15, or Tropical Storm Omar now. Its current pressure is at 1,007 millibars. Max sustained winds. Remember, these winds need to be withheld with this storm for over a minute with 35 knots or 40 miles per hour. Current location 35.3 north, 71.7 west, and its current movement, it is moving east-northeast at 13 knots or 15 miles per hour. Now let's get into the more concerning storm. Tropical Storm Nana, here are the key messages from advisory number 2. Tropical Storm Nana is now forecast to be a hurricane as it approaches the coast and enters of Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, and Yucatan. Should closely monitor the progress of the storm. Strong winds, dangerous storm surge, and very heavy rainfall causing flash flooding are becoming more likely from Nana. So obviously it's going to become a hurricane here, as they just state. Tropical storm warnings and watches could be in effect here in the next couple hours, maybe by tomorrow. But we'll be keeping our eyes on this if you are definitely around the Yucatan Peninsula. Here you can see that tropical storm warnings are in effect just north of Belize, where the hurricane is expected to kind of turn into or make landfall. Other than that, mostly have tropical storm watches along the Belize and Honduras coast, fall off by Guatemala, and become a tropical depression around 2 a.m. on Friday. Now, the winds probabilities, you can see 90 to 100% chance of tropical storm force winds right around Jamaica, and that's where it's been kind of riding along the coast of Jamaica, and then a big chunk of around 60 to 70% chance. So we obviously know this will remain a tropical storm. There isn't much shear in the area, so this will intensify, and then once it reaches the Belize coast, around a 30 to 40% chance. Now, here, what are the arrival time of these winds? Jamaica, you are already receiving some of these winds. Honduras could be receiving these winds Wednesday morning in the early morning hours. And then once it does reach the coast of around Belize, around Wednesday around 8 p.m., and then Guatemala Thursday in the early morning hours, and then goes right back into the Pacific Ocean around Thursday around 8 p.m. Here's a kind of closer view of these warnings up that map that you can see. Here is the current kind of wind field that it's being forecast. You can see it became a tropical storm, and then you can see right along the coast here, tropical storm warnings and watches are in effect. So if you are in this area, you need to be taking this storm very seriously. As it said earlier, storm surge is definitely a probability with this, so you need to be preparing while you can before it is too late. What's the track guidance for this? You can see most models are very, very consistent with it kind of going through the Belize coast and throughout the Yucatan Peninsula. It's just going to be a matter of how long will this storm last, and if it does, will it make any landfall possibly after the Yucatan Peninsula as it does go into the Pacific Ocean. Here is the intensity guidance. You can see here the ship model is the only model that has this rapidly intensifying. Most of the models are very, very consistent with it being a Category 1 hurricane, or not even reaching a hurricane. I do think it will become a Category 1 hurricane. I'll show you guys my forecast here in a minute. Here's now some satellite imagery. You can see a big chunk of convection really starting to fire off with a little area of around -90 right around here. So you can see it is kind of, the storm is having this convection fall apart, and then it rapidly picking back up right after it does happen. So that's very, very concerning. That happens with hurricanes a lot. You can see a little bit of convection kind of starting to form on the back side of the storm. So we could have very possibly two areas of convection that we do need to be looking out for. And then on the water vapor side of things, you can clearly see right here where the convection really starts to fire off, and then a little storm really kind of fire up kind of off of Puerto Rico. We'll have to be keeping our eyes on this convection that does kind of form with this storm. Here's my forecast. So I have it reaching a weak Category 1 hurricane in around 36 hours with 74 to 77 mile per hour winds, 990 millibars. But before that, in 24 hours, I have it reaching 60 to 63 mile per hour winds with around 998 millibars. And then right after it reaches land, I have it falling back down to a tropical storm in around 48 hours with 55 to 60 mile per hour winds and pressure down to 995 millibars. You can see in the top right corner, I do have a graph showing the requirements for each of these storms. So in order for it to become a Cat 2, it has to be 96 mile per hour winds. Just kind of, I like to have that up there for you guys so you can kind of see my thoughts going into it and what is required for these storms, especially with future hurricanes, how intense these storms could very well be. Here's my tropical condition forecast. You can see in this red, I do have it being hurricane force status, or conditions possible with a very intense flooding, storm surge. And then to the bottom and to the left of it, I have it being tropical storm conditions, possibly some very intense wind, obviously rain, possible some flooding. And then right after, kind of going into the Guerrero area, have it being tropical depression conditions, possibly just some very intense winds probable. Now we're going to move into these sea surface temperatures. You can see kind of up north, it is starting to kind of cool down a little bit with around that mid to lower 80s, and that's what's going to cause that tropical storm Omar to not really intensify. And there is also a cold front coming off of the Atlantic coast as well. It's also going to cause that storm not to intensify. But down south is a completely different answer. You can see mid to upper 80s with these sea surface temperatures, which can cause some pretty fast intensification, as we saw with Hurricane Laura, which was a Category 4, maybe a Category 5 at landfall. These temperatures were around this degrees, around the high 80s to very low 90s. So we obviously have seen in the past how easily it is for these storms to intensify with these really warm waters. Now let's look at the wind shear. You can see hardly any shear right here. Maybe a little bit down here that if it does move north, it could interact with. But other than that, not much is going to hold this storm from kind of intensifying, other than it having not a lot of time, because it is sitting somewhere around right here, so it doesn't have much time to get its act together. So that could be the main reason why this doesn't intensify anymore. Let's look at the tropical intensity guide. So you can see very favorable conditions throughout the entire Caribbean for highly favorable conditions for storms to intensify. And then up north, you can't really see, but up here there's a lot of highly unfavorable conditions. Tropical storm Omar is starting to run out. It's somewhere sitting right around here. It is starting to lose kind of that area of highly favorable conditions to intensify, and that's how it kind of formed into a tropical storm. Where it used those conditions to kind of help itself out. But other than that, it's not really going to be out there for much longer. And then here's the atmospheric moisture. You can see very, very moist waters right on here and a little bit up here, but that will be reaching that kind of drier air up north with Omar. With down south, there isn't much dry air at all, other than kind of on the coast right here, which could kind of halt that storm to kind of rapidly fall apart. And then here on the Saharan dust layer, you can see there is a lot going on right now. So you have a big, big chunk of very high dust, which is going to kind of form or help these storms not to intensify. But you can see down here, you can see a very big wave coming off the coast. We'll be keeping our eyes on that. But here is tropical storm down here on the south, and then here is Omar up here. Well, that's going to do it for the video, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to hit that red subscribe button down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.